selling with authenticity.
It's building that relationship about the value.
Because you want to make that impact.
It can make you happier.
Elevate others around
Welcome
us.
to the Selling from the Heart podcast, your home for authentic, effective, and socially integrated sales strategies to help you master the art of selling. Join your co-hosts Larry Levine and Daryl Amy, along with some of the world's best sales thought leaders and practitioners, as we explore ways to help you grow your sales.
Hello and welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host Daryl Amy here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
Oh, another great day in the Selling from the Heart podcast studio. But you know what I just noticed? This might be one of the first podcasts, Daryl, we've ever done where we don't have any Selling from the Heart gear on. But that's okay. We're going to have a terrific time with our special guest anyway.
Yeah, you know who we are. And by the way, if you're new to the Selling from the Heart podcast, welcome. You've joined a growing community of sales professionals and leaders that are dedicated to being genuine, being authentic, adding real value. We call it Selling from the Heart. And Larry, right here, as we're recording this, the heat is on. Summer is well upon us. And I know it's been so much fun in the middle of all of this, engaging with our friends in the Selling from the Heart community. We call it the Selling from the Heart Insiders Group. It's a great way to stay focused and motivated in the middle of this season.
It's a fantastic way to get you through the dog days of summer. And we all know the dog days of summer. I'm throwing the baseball terminology out there, but the Selling from the Heart Insiders Group is just a great group of like-hearted and like-minded salespeople, sales leaders who we get together every Friday. We have a great time. We hash things out in masterminds. We bring thought leaders, our friends in up close and personal. We have a great time.
So come hang out with us. Make it your mid-year resolution to get engaged with like-hearted sales professionals. You can try it out for free, actually, at sellingfromtheheart.net/insiders. Join us free for 30 days. sellingfromtheheart.net/insiders. You're going to thank us. It's going to be a great boost to your summer, to your motivation, to your morale, and you're going to get lots of great ideas. We look forward to hanging out. But we've got a fantastic show teed up today. Larry, why don't you introduce our guest and let's dive in.
Oh, well, first of all, welcome Tony Cross. But right to kid, we got to cool off summer, so we had to go to the other side of the world to bring in our guest Tony Cross. But a special shout out to a near and dear friend of mine, Tim Ojai. I remember this was months ago. Tim sends me a message and he goes, "You really have to have my friend Tony Cross on the Selling from the Heart podcast." We had a great conversation. One last shout out, Mike Weinberg. We love you because I know you and Tony do some work together, but nevertheless, Tony, this is going to be an awesome time. Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much, Larry. I'm excited to be here.
Well, Tony, we're excited as well. And we're looking forward to hearing the answer to this question all the way from South Africa. What does it mean to you to sell from the heart?
Well, Daryl, I'm very much a head person, so let me start there. I believe in neuroscience, I believe in frameworks of thinking, and I believe in using your head in selling. But that is all useless unless you know you can connect to your heart. So for me, it's about your purpose. Why are you in selling? What gets you up in the morning, and who are you inside? And I think when you bring those two together, then you become successful. So you really are clear on your why, as Simon Sinek would say, but you add to that your mindset, and the two make a really powerful combination. So that's what I would say it means to me.
No, I love this. And, as I'm listening to what you're saying, it reminds me, Daryl and I talk a lot, Tony, about the combination of mindset, heart set, and skill set. It's just a wonderful triangle. So I'm glad that you brought up mindset in all this. But here's what's interesting as we kick this off, guys, is I love that Tony brought to the surface purpose and why, because more and more and more people are bringing this to the surface. And I think if sales professionals and sales leaders can connect to their purpose and connect with why they're doing things, I believe, watch what starts happening to engagement with their clients and the success they have in sales. Would you all agree?
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly agree, Larry. It's a question I love to ask in interviews. when you're talking to someone, so what brought you to this profession, and what's keeping you in this profession? And when the answer is, the paycheck and the commission, then you start to go, okay, really, is that really what brought you? But if you scratch below the surface and there's nothing around the authentic purpose of helping customers, the authentic purpose of helping your own business succeed, then you're starting to understand, perhaps why many sales people, perhaps they're doing this because there's nothing better to be doing, or we're waiting for something else to come along. Maybe one day I'll be in a real job or a real profession, and it's a real passion of mine to professionalize this profession of selling. We speak about doctors, and they're always practicing, and they're always reading, and they're always going on programs and continuous professional development. Architects are the same. Financial people are the same. What about sales professionals? Shouldn't we always be practicing? Shouldn't we always be getting certifications and this lifelong learning? So it's certainly a big passion of mine, to be talking to as many people about this noble profession of selling.
Couldn't agree more. And I think, we talk a lot about the difference between a sales representative and a sales professional. And one of the great things is on the Selling from the Heart podcast, you're talking to a global audience as sales professionals. Listeners wouldn't be here if they weren't wanting to get better at their craft. And we have sales professionals and sales leaders. And we're honored today, Tony, to have one of the preeminent experts in sales leadership here on the show with us today. And I'm really looking forward to the angle of this conversation, because I know that you are helping organizations with their sales operations. You're helping them set up structures and frameworks and put things in place. But your answer to what does it mean to sell from the heart, saying none of this works without the heart, if you translate that over to leadership, it seems like none of this works without working on the heart of the organization or the culture.
100%, Daryl. So many times we struggle in an organization, and many of us have experience with this, in that the culture is perhaps not a sales-friendly culture or a client-friendly even culture. And that's just the starting point. But imagine if you're a sales professional working in a culture where senior executives are, bad-mouthing sales, professionals, for example. They're always at lunch, they're always on the golf course, they're always expecting, big commission checks. And, I've heard some language by senior executives that suggests the culture is not sales-friendly or not even client-friendly many times. And yet we put up vision, mission, and value statements in all of our reception areas that we all used to go and see. And we look up and we say, but those are not the values that are within this organization. So when it comes to a sales manager or a sales leader, we would argue that one of the components of their role is to create the right culture, whether that's in one sales team or one sales organization or the whole organization. It has to start somewhere. But when the culture is enabling, it's incredible. The results are amazing, and you can argue what does good look like? What does world-class culture look like? We would argue that it probably starts with the heart, in that you have to build this trust environment. I need to trust that Larry has my back. I need to trust that Daryl has my back. And that's not a head thing, coming back to the original question. That's a heart thing. And then it needs to be a high performing sales culture. But, what happens if somebody fails? What happens if, a customer has an issue? And those are all elements within the culture, as I would say, the around here statements, around here sales are, around here customers are, fill in that sentence. So what we do is we try and encourage the sales leaders to get intentional about building the right culture in which performance is most likely going to happen.
Oh, I love this. And in a couple things that was running through my head as I was listening to what you're saying was, I almost think there's a subculture within a culture.
Mm-hmm.
is right. And this is where sales leaders can really drive this home. And you bring up the word intentionality. And then the other thing that I think about with intentionality is accountability. And where do you think accountability lies in this? I'm just curious, Tony.
It's definitely at the core, Larry. When you have an accountable culture within, as you say, maybe it's within a sales team, you start to see the performance because I'm going to be accountable. I'm going to take responsibility. We use this saying, perhaps too lightly, freedom comes through responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really about being accountable. And we all know Mike Weinberg, talks about accountability. But how do you establish accountability in a sales team? It's very specific. So you have to have things like clear expectations right up front.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to measure those. So many times we set expectations for sales professionals and we never revisit them. We don't actually track them because we can't, or they weren't set correctly in the first place. So we have to track the metrics, let's call them. And then we have to give feedback. And imagine if a sales manager actually spent time coaching and giving that feedback, both the positive and the developmental. And then you need consequences and incentives. And in some ways, I think that the profession of selling is all about these incentives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's almost created this environment where, salespeople are coin operated. If you throw money at them, they're going to perform. But nothing could be further from the truth. And you have to have this balance. There needs to be a consequence, if you are not accountable. So it does take a bit of work. But that formula, if you look at it from clear expectations, management, feedback, consequences, and incentives, is the same formula for performance. So whilst you're driving accountability, you're driving sales performance at the same time. So that's, Larry, your original question. It's at the core. This is so important for sustainable sales success.
I love it. Tony, it seems impossible to say the word culture without quoting good old Drucker, the management expert that famously said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I want to think about sales teams that sales leaders that aren't intentionally working on culture. My thought is that culture doesn't naturally just happen. Like anything in life, it doesn't accidentally get better. It slides. What is the impact of a poor sales culture? Let's just think about this together for a few minutes. Because I know when you start talking about this, in the sales world, we start going, it's too touchy feely. Come on, man. We got to just, get the job done and all that stuff. But what are some of the high level impacts of not focusing on culture and having a poor sales culture?
Yeah, Daryl, it's interesting. As you say, you can slide back so easily. So whilst it's this touchy-feely, hard to define sometimes, this culture that we speak about, in my experience, often culture becomes the way we operate. So let me give you an example. In a sales team, the salesperson, the sales professional arrives, and let's say on the first Friday when we were back in the office, let's go out for a lunch and let's have a beer and let's talk, and we're chatting to our mates, our new colleagues. And let's say I'm the new salesperson, and I say, no, I'm really excited. I'm going to be bringing forward some great ideas that I brought. No, Tony, that's not the way it works around here. Because when you bring a great idea, if it works, then someone will claim the idea. If it doesn't work, you'll never get over it. People will always be reminding you of that silly idea. And then I shrink a bit into my shell, let's call it. And that really is an indication of the culture. Mm-hmm. So when that happens, you're not getting the innovation, you're not getting the creativity, you're not getting probably even the authenticity. You're struggling to get to that. And slowly, what happens in our experience is good sales professionals get beaten by the weak culture. But on the other hand, if you have a really strong sales culture, an average performer does very well because they're brought into this, I'm going to say positive, it's not necessarily positive, but this enabling culture.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love this. And let's continue down this journey just for a second. And I'd be curious because I want to look at both sides of this through the lens of Tony Cross just for a moment. Is share with us, through your dealings, what's that strong sales culture look like, first of all? And then let's look at the other side of this. What's that weak sales culture look like? And let's continue down this journey if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So on the strong side, the words we like to use are accountable culture. The other one, when it relates to clients, is we actually teach that a world-class sales culture, as it relates to a client, the word we would use is integrity. So when you act with noble purpose, when you act with integrity, that's a really strong culture related to, for example, our dealings with our customers. We often think when we're talking about customers, it must be high performance or value or things like that. The word we would look at, the cultural statement, would be that we have an ethical or high integrity culture. And the negative, the poor culture would be one where we really aren't that way. So if you think about integrity for a second in sales, and you go, seriously, sales, integrity, how does that go together? Some people would ask that, but that is actually doing what's right for the customer. That's walking away from a deal where you don't believe your solution is perhaps the best for the customer. The other one is around collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
So we believe collaboration takes place when two things happen. The first is you have a shared goal, and the second is you have a shared way of thinking or a shared framework. And what we often find with collaboration is we think internal, and we think collaborating between sales and service, for example, or sales and marketing. But what about the customer? Imagine if we really are collaborating with our customer, and that's the culture in the sales team. We have this collaboration where we're going to try and align outcomes. When we teach sales, when we talk to sales professionals and we say, what is your job? They say, well, my job is selling. And we go, oh, yes, it is, for sure it is. But if you had to break that into 3 or 4 areas, what would they be? And it's quite a struggle, actually. Maybe it's opening and handling objections if you're old school, or and they get a little bit lost. Maybe they talk about value. And we say one of the most important components is your job is to align outcomes. Your outcome as a business and the outcome of a customer. And imagine if you could align. But coming back to culture or integrity, when you can't align, you actually need to walk away. So I'm not sure if that fully explores your question there, Larry, but those are the areas, let's call it, of a high-performing sales culture, we would argue.
No, this is really great, and used a word that's near and dear to Daryl, and I know Daryl picked up on it because I saw it in his eyes as he used the word outcomes. And Daryl, that is so near and dear to you.
Well, all of that is so important that it does get focused on outcomes. And I'm curious, Tony, when you think about looking at this from a proactive standpoint, we've got a lot of sales leaders that I know are wanting to ask this question. Okay, well, I'm here right now. Maybe it's been a while since I've thought about culture. Maybe I've never really given this a whole lot of thought, although this is becoming a very common and will continue to be a very common topic in the Selling from the Heart community. But when you're thinking about culture as a sales professional or sales leader, what are some things that you can do to get started to foster the type of culture we're talking about here today?
Yeah, I mean, that is a great question. And often we think we need to wait for the CEO or the chairman even, to lead by example and set the tone. It's great if that happens. But in the meantime, within one small area, one small team, one sales team, one group of people within a sales team, you can start to create, what we like to call the ripple in the pond. You throw a pebble in and it starts to ripple outwards. What we would always suggest, you start with a measurement. So do a quick measurement of what you think the current culture is. And the way we do that is quite simply, you fill in the around here statement. So around here, collaboration is. Around here, customers are. And you honestly answer the question. And nobody has to see your answer, but you write down, around here, customers are difficult. Around here, customers are problematic around that really talks to your culture.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you have what we would call an anchoring culture, it's holding back your results rather than an accelerating culture, then you need to build a plan to improve it. And what we then do is we say, let's look at what we say, what we think, and what we do. So if you see this as a matrix quickly, what we say matters. If we're talking internally and we say your customers, no, it's not my customer, it's our customers. So just in the language we use, what we think is important, because that, as all of us know now with neuroscience, that leads to how we behave, and then what we do. So what we think, what we say, and what we do. And then you just on the vertical side of that matrix, you say start, stop, and continue. As simple as that. So what are the things that we currently say that we shouldn't say? And we write the list, and we maybe get a bit of a brainstorming going. What are the things we should start to say? What are the things we should continue to say, because they're probably part of an accelerating culture? And you do that fairly quickly around one of the areas of culture that you perhaps are going to work on. One of our customers was saying, we have an issue with accountability, we have an issue with communication, and we have an issue with collaboration. And we did this very same exercise. Around here, collaboration is, around here, communication is, around here, leadership is. And we did a number of statements. And then we said, what should it be? What is your desired statement? And then you use this matrix. And it's incredible. We all think culture takes, a long time to shift. And of course, it takes time. But in 21, 28, 30, in a month, you can shift a significant, that you almost feel different. We hear back from sales leaders and they tell us, there's something going on in this other sales team that you've been working with. It just feels different. And you start to get that shift going. So we don't have to over engineer this. Just a practical framework to shift a culture in a sales team, or frankly in any team.
Oh, this is great stuff, and I really admire the word that you use, because I've never heard it used in the same context with culture. And you use the word accelerating culture, which I thought was just real unique. And just walk us through. I'd just be curious on the origin of this, is how you came up with blending accelerating with culture in the same two words.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure how we came up with it.
No, it's all good, but I've never heard it used like that before. So it's cool.
Yeah, what we were thinking, myself and my business partner, Alan Versteeg, and we were workshopping this, and we were saying, we know no experts in culture, but we know the importance. This was many years ago. We know the importance of it. And we started, Alan very much likes these alliterations, the CCC or 2A's, or he likes these alliterations because you can remember
My kind
it.
of guy. Love it.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll love him, because you need to connect and converse and convince, and
Yes.
we have these alliterations which are really fun. But the good thing is that you can remember these things, and sales leaders can remember it. And we were saying, I was saying, what is a negative culture? Because we don't want to call it negative and positive, or poor and weak, and we were struggling with the words. And he was saying, well, it's like a ship. It's anchored. You can't. Your results can't go forward, and it's anchored. So we came up with this anchoring culture as a word, and then we said, well, what's the opposite? Because that's what we would try and create in a team. And no, it must start with the letter A. And accelerating.
Beautiful.
Actually, then the more you use it, the more it makes sense, because and it's about the results. You don't want your results to be anchored. You may still be successful, but it's this continuous fight against the anchor that's weighing you down. What would be the opposite? And you can accelerate results through great culture. We talk about strategy and we talk about execution. Probably we need to talk about culture, execution, and strategy. And they're all important. But, you could argue that execution is, really executing well an average strategy is better than having a brilliant strategy that you don't execute. And then if you look at finding the right culture in a sales team in particular, that really accelerates, I guess both your strategy and your execution. That's what we would argue. So yeah, that's more or less how the term came about. Yeah,
that's good.
See, there's alliteration at work right there. So I think that's beautiful. And the reality is exactly what we've been talking about here today. This isn't just, mushy, soft stuff. This is, your culture is either a boat anchor that's holding you back, or it's something that's propelling you forward. And you just think about all the different things sales leaders are struggling with right now, recruiting and retaining. Those two things, right? You're going to recruit better. You're going to keep people around. Just solving those problems themselves is an accelerator, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Daryl, we talk about the great resignation, if you like that term or not, and we talk about, the struggle for talent. We ran an event recently around just talking about this war for sales talent. How do you attract and how do you retain great sales talent? And the way we approached this was, imagine if you can think about what are the questions your current people and your future potential sales professionals are asking. They might not be articulating it and verbalizing it, but they're asking it in, what's going on. And they're asking questions about, what is my purpose and does it align with the team and the organization? Where am I going to spend my time and who am I going to spend the time with?
Yeah.
Which environment am I going to be working from home, and why do we need offices anyway? And then you start to look and say, culture impacts all of that. What's our culture around time? Is it a culture of, watching the clock and Daryl's 6 minutes late into the office today, or is that the culture, or is the culture something else where I respect each other's time? I'm there on time and I respect people's time. I come prepared to the meeting. Is that our culture? So culture then becomes very important in this war for sales talent. So it impacts recruitment and onboarding and retention and motivation and so many areas within a sales organization.
Love this. What an incredibly valuable conversation. Very timely as well. Tony, how can our listeners get more Tony Cross in their life?
We run regular events. So if they want, they can just drop me an email, tonyc@growthmattersintl.com, and we'll add them onto our list. They're free events. We run them pretty much every six weeks, and we talk about a topic of interest, a personal power topic, or a sales professional topic, or a sales management topic. So that's probably the easiest way, Daryl.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Tony, thank you so much for sharing time with us today. This has been extremely valuable. We really appreciate you here at Selling from the Heart.
Yeah, we thank you. We enjoyed it.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, Larry, Culture Eats Strategy for Breakfast. We talk a lot about the heart of an authentic sales professional. Happens to be a subtitle of one of my favorite books. But also
thank you, Daryl.
We got to look at the heart of an authentic sales team. And I think Tony brought some ideas to the forefront here that are really, really critical for sales leaders and the aspiring sales leaders here in our audience.
No, absolutely. And the whole time I had this flash running through my head, and I don't know why, but I remember one of the very first workshops that I ever went to, way back in my early days in sales. And it was a chair moment. And it was a chair moment aimed at all sales leaders. And the person would just ruffle their hair like this. And then they would say this: iron fist, velvet glove. And I think this is a great way to sum up creating that accountability culture, because it's one that's going to fuel, and I love the word that Tony used, this accelerating culture that will fuel that accelerating sales culture.
That's right. Absolutely. And I love the quote, just going around here, fill in the blank, right?
Brilliant.
This is a good litmus test. Well, around here, we believe in community, Larry. And so we want to invite all of our listeners to join us for the next Insiders Group. It's a great way to keep your summer going, stay motivated, stay focused, stay in your heart. Join us for the next Insiders Group. Go to sellingfromtheheart.net/insiders. You can give it a try for free for 30 days. You're going to thank us. Thank you to everybody in the Selling from the Heart audience who is hitting subscribe on YouTube. We're focused right now on growing our YouTube audience, and every week it's getting bigger and bigger. You may be listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and you may not know you can actually see Larry's face, and it's one of the things.
Hey, stop it! I'm just
You
letting
don't want to
everyone
miss this.
No, I'm just letting y'all know we work really hard on makeup and hair here at Selling from the Heart, and that's why we want you to watch us on YouTube. Yeah, right.
So look for Selling from the Heart YouTube. You'll see it in the show notes as well. Do us a favor when you go there, subscribe, and you don't want to miss an episode. We've got a great roster of guests coming up for the rest of the summer, so make sure to put us in your feed. We're so glad to be a part of your life. Come join us in the Insiders Group. Until next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep adding real value, build an authentic culture, and most of all, sell from the heart.